Hi, welcome to the Village of Buchanan, April 23rd, 2024 workshop and special meeting. Please join me in the pledge. I pledge
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, normally our April meeting, we just have a workshop, but this evening we also have a special meeting where we will be approving our budget. So first of all, I would like to ask Chris Kopp and just Chris this evening, okay, of O'Connor Davies regarding our audit, the village's audit. So he's going to do a review for us. Thank you, Chris.
All right, thank you very much. I did put together a little PowerPoint for you so you can follow along and you don't have to go through the audit book. First, before I walk out, I'd like to thank the board for taking the time out of your schedule to let us present. I know it's been a little tough getting everything on the schedule with everything you have going on. And we always appreciate the time that the board takes. So what I'm going to discuss tonight, and I'll go through it relatively quickly, is an overview and the required communications that an auditor has with the client. We'll talk about your results from 23 for your general fund. That's your main operating fund. Then I did put in a little comparison of your revenues for the current year. We'll talk about the variances. I did a 5-year history. I also did your expenditures. We'll talk about some variances there. And I put in a 5-year history just so you could have some, reflection on where you've been. We'll talk about your fund balance and where you stand now. And we'll talk a little bit about your fund balance policy at that time. Then you do operate some other funds, so I'll just give you a quick level highlight of that. And then for your own purpose, I put in your debt service. I put in schedule your bond payments, what bonds you have outstanding and your debt, so you can see where you are for the next few years. So under the required communications, I have to discuss with you your responsibilities. So for the audit, your responsibility is to select and implement accounting policies that are appropriate for a municipality of your size and structure. Your financial statements need to be fairly presented according to US GAAP, generally accepted accounting principles. And importantly, you have to maintain effective internal controls over your assets and your cash accounts and your financial reporting. We also randomly test your compliance with laws, regulations, contracts. And we like to joke and say the most important thing is to provide us with all the records we need to complete the audit. And it's setting the proper tone at the top. We do watch all your videos and see how you handle your meetings and to make sure people have an avenue to discuss any issues they may have with you. So we do all that and read all your board minutes. Our responsibility is basically the deliverables are the independent auditor's report. Very happy to say that you received a clean opinion, which is the highest level of assurance an auditing firm can provide a client. That is dated back in December 22nd. We're doing the required communications to those charged with governance now. And we also issue a management letter that we'd like to think of as a best practice letter, where if we noted something during the course of the audit, we write it up and then we give you a suggested better way to do something. We need to also communicate any fraud or illegal acts that are noted during the audit. I do have to point out that that's not the purpose of an audit, is to uncover fraud. We're very pleased that we did the fraud interviews. Nobody indicated that they had any concerns. And obviously during our tests, we didn't see anything that we needed to bring to your attention. We didn't encounter any difficulties during the course of the audit. Cindy and Marcus provided everything we needed. They're very cooperative and they helped us all along the way. There were also what are known as no uncorrected misstatements. So if we did see something, again, most of it's due to timing. If we saw an entry that needed to be made, they agreed to make said entry, and there was no discussion as to whether or not they didn't agree with it or not. So we're pleased to say that. And like I said, there are no disagreements from that. All that being said, we'll talk about your general fund now. And it's good I noticed the typo on the front. This is 23's general fund revenues, not 22's. It's a good thing I audited this. So what I did is in the 4 columns, I include your original budget, the one that was adopted by the board. Then we put in your final budget. We do the actual, and then that variance with the actual, not the original. If we start 3 numbers up from the bottom, you'll see net change in fund balance. So when you adopted your budget, you didn't use any of your fund balance in this year. So therefore, it doesn't show any expected net change. During the course of the year, you didn't change that. You didn't adopt any resolutions. You didn't modify the budget to where you did appropriate any fund balance. And if you go to the actual column, 3 numbers up, you generated a $923,000 surplus. So basically the village had a very good year. All right. So if we go up to the top line, how did we accomplish that? You can see that your revenues, if you go to the far right, came in about $688,000 better. We'll talk about where that was made up. Your expenditures came in 723,000 under budget. So compared to budget on those lines, you did about 1.4 million better than you expected to do. But you drop down to the other financing sources and uses, and you see that you do have a deficit of 488. And that's because what the board did was they increased the transfers to your capital fund. So instead of bonding money, you put money in there to avoid future interest costs and to fund some of your capital projects that you're going to have. On the next slide, we'll talk about your revenues. So again, as I said, you did come in about 688 above. So obviously real property tax came in within $15,000 of budget. It came in a little bit better than budget. And that's only an accounting transaction. We look at your collections in the future, and it generated a small surplus this year. Your payments in lieu of taxes came in right on target, but they are, if you notice, less than the prior year. And obviously that's due to Indian Point and Holtec. You have your non-property tax distribution from the county. That came in about 194,000 better than you expected, and about 50,000 better than you got the prior year. And that's your sales tax. Sales tax in Westchester County was still very vibrant. And I believe you got your quarterly payment, and that made up for your downfall in the first 2 months, right? Yeah, you were down. I think your sales tax for the first few months was down about 3 or 4%. Now I think you're up 3 or 4%. So the last payment from the state kind of put you back where you thought you'd be. Sewer charges came in about 132,000 better than you expected. Based on our analytics, we asked, and it was, you stayed conservative in your budget of that item, because you can see it was very close to 22's actual. Indian Point agreement, that was a new agreement for last year that you got a $200,000 payment, I believe, from Holtec. Earnings on investment, you came in about 159,000 better. I think we all know what happened in 23. Interest rates skyrocketed near the end of 22 and beginning of 23. You went from earning about 0.5% to almost 4 or 5%. So obviously, because you've been, I don't want to say squirreling away money, but putting away money in your surplus based on your policy, you're able to earn some interest on that money. Your cessation grant came in right on target. I mean, that's a known amount. What is that, 5 years, 6 year?
8 years.
8 years. Your sidewalk revenue is based on your expenditures. You have a sidewalk project that shows up in our expenditure discussion, but you get reimbursed based on how much you spent during the course of the year. And you can see ARPA money, the rescue plan money, you didn't use any money during the course of 23. So all those generated about $532,000 surplus. You have many other revenues. They all did come in over budget by about another 156, bringing you to the 688 that I pointed out on the first page. On the next slide, you'll see the 5-year history of all those revenues that I talked about. We're not going to go through that. I just put it in there for you so you can have a comparison where you are. I think probably the most important line is the first line, real property tax, where you see the jump in property tax from 21 to 22 and then 22 to 23. And you can see on the line next to it is directly related to the reduction in your pilot payment. So as the pilot payments reduce, you obviously have to make that money up in property taxes. And you can see that correlation right on those 2 lines. The next slide, we'll talk about your expenditures. Again, your budget contains many, many lines, so it's hard to pinpoint where all the variances occur, because you can see that most of these variances aren't very large. But we start with your central garage, and you did come in under budget by about $31,000. It's due to a vacant position you had. Somebody retired the year before, so you didn't fill the position for the full year. Your contingency, you did budget $540,000 originally for contingency. You can see that by the end of the year, you still had $62,000 left, so you didn't use all your contingency funds. Street maintenance came in a little less than budget, about $44,000 less, but about 60 less than the year before. And that's always directly related to the amount of, I guess, the roughness of your winter, how many potholes you have, how much work you have to do after the season ends. We already spoke about the sidewalks. It's a program where you're repairing the sidewalks. You need to have some reimbursements for it. Parks was unique. Ever since COVID, people in villages and towns have been ramping their parks programs back up, not understanding and not knowing where the usage was going to be. So you can see that, you did come in about $78,000 less than the amended budget because you thought the programs were going to increase. And it's also less than the prior year because I believe in the prior year you did some roof repairs on one of the projects. Sewage treatment basically came in right where it was the year before, exactly where it was the year before. Your retirement systems always vary because it's based on vacant positions. We know that state has now been increasing the rates that they're charging you. So you're always going to be putting more money in that budget. But you can see you did come in under on the employees' retirement by about 64. And as I said, you did have a couple of long-term employees retire, so the new hires make less money, so less money goes to the retirement system. And your police budget came in pretty much on target, considering you don't know the rates that they're going to charge for the next year. So overall, your expenditures came in about $700,000 under what you anticipated. And again, 5-year chart, so you can see some of those expenses compared. The next slide is your fund balance. So if we go to bottom of the first column, you can see your overall fund balance is about 3.7 million. And compared to your adopted budget, that's about a 45% fund balance. Your unassigned is at about 31%, at about 2.6 million. And you can see both significantly increased from the prior year. So again, you've done a good job coming out of COVID, managing your budget. You stayed conservative on most of your revenues, now knowing where they're going, and you've been able to put that money aside for future use. Now, I did read your policy, and your policy says you have to have no less than 15% in unassigned. So you're meeting that at 31%, you're meeting it. And then the other part of the fund balance that I thought was a very good idea was you said that any excess over that 15% needs to be used for a one-time expense. And that's a great way to say to use that excess fund balance. Because in your fund balance, what most people don't realize, when you appropriate fund balance, you're basically saying I have a hole in my budget because I filled it with prior year's money. And eventually that prior year's money runs out and then it falls to tax dollars. So we always encourage clients to use the excess fund balance, what they determine to be excess, for one-time expenditures. And that's what your policy says. So congratulations on that. Also remember, in your fund, not in your fund balances, as of the end of 23, your year-end May, you still had about $124,000 of ARPA money unspent. I don't know if you spent it between now and then.
It'll be spent in the next 2 months.
There you go. So again, that's not in your fund balance because that isn't recorded as revenue until it's expended. On the next slide, like I said, you do operate some other small funds. So you have your water fund. Right now, its fund balance is about 1.6 million. You have a special purpose fund. That's 228,000. I believe most of that money is recreation money, Marcus. Is that old recreation? And your capital projects fund has a surplus. And again, that surplus is because you've been transferring money to the capital fund in preparation of doing new projects and not using bonded money. So that money becomes revenue and you just haven't spent it yet. As I said, the next 2 slides were just put in there basically for the board to see your outstanding debt. So you can see you only have 2 bonds outstanding. In fact, one is probably going to be paid off relatively soon. And your overall debt is only $2 million. And you see your 24, 25, 26 payments are about roughly 210,000 each. So again, a relatively low debt ratio to your overall budget. So you've done a good job of managing your debt. And then the installments purchase, you do have leases for police vehicles. And you took them out in 2020. And it looks like you have 2 years left on those. I guess 3, 2 now. All right. And that's it. I mean, that's your year at a synopsis. I mean, it was a good year. You stayed very conservative on your revenues, again, coming out of COVID. People didn't know where sales tax, mortgage tax, and all those other taxes were going. And luckily, the economy in Westchester is still vibrant and sales tax grew, and that's generated a big chunk of your excess.
Good. Any questions? It was a good overview.
And again, I know it's tough to come up with questions after I just presented, but if you do have any, I'd be more than happy to come back. I literally live up the street. So
Oh, okay, good.
if you need me to come back for a meeting, if you think of anything, please just give me a call. I'll be more than happy to come back and respond to any questions that you may think of.
All right, great.
All right.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Again, thank you for your time.
Okay, next on the agenda is a presentation by Chris Lynch of GANC. And this is the property, the former property, village property on the corner of Blakely Avenue and Albany Post Road.
You want the slide plan first, or?
Yes, please. Good evening, everyone. Again, my name is Chris Lynch, is my partner, Patrick Nomoyle, hello, Mayor, members of the board. So to give a quick update, Pat, we have some handouts here. This is the site plan, which has the 12 units on, remains little changed since you saw it last. We're currently targeting, I believe we're going to be before the planning board, if that's the village, if that's the lead agency. For the meeting, that last meeting in June, I believe it's June 27th. That's what we're targeting to come before. The purpose of us coming in tonight is to give you kind of an update of where we are. We've been quiet for the last couple months. We wanted to make sure we had the financing in place and understood more of the project. And so we're back, we're ready to move forward. We're going to be looking, we'll be using Insight Engineering for our civil work, as well as Joe Thompson as the architect. We have, as part of the plan, Marcus, if you could, here's a,
Keep talking.
okay, you can, did you pass that around? So, yeah, no, that's up there. You can pass it around if they want to see. So with the site work, again, little's changed. We're fighting that, we're fighting that topo in the back to make it work. It's a tough site. The topo goes up quickly, but we're making it work. Can you change that? Any luck with that? All right, well, you're trying to figure that out, so thank you. So the
you.
architecture that we're currently looking at is something like this. Again, this is just an early proposal. Obviously, the village will have feedback. We love this design. We think it's a classic look, a little contemporary, but also traditional. And it's important, as we've said before, it's the entrance, one of the entrances into the village, so it's got to look right. And this is, you can see, we're doing a garage under with an access to 2 floors above. And we're looking to build it in groups of 4 for a total of 12, 4, 4, and 4. The site plan you're looking at has them all as attached, but there'll be a separation between units 4 and 5 and 8 and 9. All right, thank you, Marcus. Again, this is just the first pass. We like this design. We think it looks great, but we'll be taking feedback, of course, from the village. There will be one variance we're going to need, at least one variance that we're aware of today. It's a little quirky thing in the code relative to a number of units per acre. The way the zone is written now, there's a difference between for rent and for sale. These are going to be for sale units. The way the code is now, we're allowed 6 units an acre, but rental are allowed 12. So we're going to get hurt by that. So we're going to we'll come in and talk to you later about that. Again, if it's for sales, you're only allowed 6. We didn't catch it till recently. They're not going to be rental, which would have allowed 12 units an acre. So it's something we'll discuss later. Let's work it out. Any thoughts, initial questions? Again, this was meant to be just an update. You know, let us know we haven't gone anywhere. We're still here, and we're going to be coming in late June.
Just one question, Chris. Will this be considered like a condo association where? Okay.
Yes, yes.
And
Well,
how will that be managed?
by internally by HOA,
Okay.
by the 12 units.
Okay.
So
they'll
self-managed.
They'll elect board members and.
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah. That's, we have to do an offering plan. We don't typically do them much anymore. It's because now we're building a lot of rental, but we've done a lot of them before, the offering plan.
Okay.
Yeah.
But there will be a third-party property manager. So I
Okay,
was
that's-
in Pelham, I lived in an 11-unit condo. I was actually president of our condo association, but we're going to hire a third-party property manager
Okay.
to take care of everything on site.
Okay.
All be
Great.
spelled out in the offering plan that's approved by the Attorney General.
Yep.
All right.
Yeah, I'm gonna go look through this, Chris, and probably have a lot of questions next time you come back in.
Oh, good.
Take
All
a
right,
look
good,
at
good.
this.
I do like the appearance of the units. It's nice, clean.
Yeah, we really liked how, what Joe came up with. It's, and it'll be impressive, level of finishes as well to match that. They're gonna be nice units. They're gonna be special. We promise that to you and we're gonna deliver it. I mean, it's you're gonna see it as you're coming into the village, it has to look sharp, and it will. Something like this, or, you know, or if the village wants to make changes, then we'll talk about it, but we like this look so far. Maybe a different color, but who knows? But I like the look. Kind of like a little bit of contemporary with a little tradition mixed in one together. So, all right, well,
Sounds good.
again, thank you all, and
Yeah, we thank you for your time.
Yeah.
we'll see you
Thank
soon.
you.
All right,
Thanks,
thank you.
guys.
Have a good night.
Appreciate it.
Thanks for
Thanks,
the
Chris.
update.
This is nice.
Okay. The next is a presentation by Vincent Xavier of Homeland Towers regarding cell tower.
Yeah.
So thank you for coming in tonight, Vincent. We have an issue with our cell service here in the village and doing some research with Croton. Croton was looking to do some cell towers and we found Vincent and Marcus, myself, and the chief went and looked at a site to see if it's possible. So tonight Vincent is gonna come in and do an overview about the cell tower, and then the board will further discuss that.
Well, again, thank you for having me. My name is Vincent Xavier. I'm the regional manager for Homeland Towers. I actually live in Cortland. And probably one of the ways the mayor heard my name is we recently just had a site approved in the town of Cortland that we're moving forward with. I was involved with the one in Croton, which is going through reviews right now. And I'm proposing another one in my town there on town property. When the mayor approached me, basically indicating that it wasn't just a coverage need from the cell carriers, but they were also looking for a spot that would be suitable to place public safety equipment to enhance your services as well. So once I was made aware of this, I basically looked at every single property that the village owns and private properties to see if I thought there was any suitable property that would be minimally intrusive and actually provide the service that the community needs. After doing all that, I really only found one property that I thought was suitable to meet those needs. And that's the Village Park at 218 Westchester Avenue. Yep, so this is the overall site plan of the park there. The proposed site would be as far back, as you can see in the top right corner there, as possible to the existing transmission lines, and behind that, the substation. We already reviewed title for the property to ensure that we understood that the easement, where the easement for the gas line was, and designed this, taking that into account to ensure that any proposed design would be wholly outside of that easement. And luckily, there is a portion of property there in the wooded area that is adequate in order to have space for the facility. The facility would consist of a 3,000 square foot, about 60 by 50 fenced in area with a monopole at its center. Actually, if we can go to the next slide, please. So this is a zoomed in of the area here, showing the easement area where our utilities would come from and the entry point, just to show that, you know, we can fit it there. And if you go to the next slide, and I should have made these bigger. For the purpose of this slide, I tend to walk away from the microphone too much. The purpose of this slide is to show that within that 3,000 square feet, we'd be able to accommodate the 4 currently FCC licensed carriers in the market: Verizon, T-Mobile, AT&T, and Dish Wireless, as well as space for your public safety equipment. And in the top right is a consolidated space for propane tanks. The reason for that is, I'm not sure how familiar you are, but with any propane tank, you need to have a 10-foot offset to any electrical devices. So by consolidating them and having room for each carrier to come in and have propane, which is really only essential to their backup generator, we're able to ensure that not only can they fit, but they're going to be able to also fit the needed redundancy for their backup generator there. So once we get to this point where we think we have a viable property, we have a design that we think will accommodate all of the community's needs, the additional due diligence now is going through the lease, potentially doing any visual. Sure. This is just preliminary. This is not official yet. I use an online service, and really the purpose of this is for me to determine, what is the minimum height of these things? You want to have them as low as possible in order to minimize any aesthetic impacts. So I ran an analysis on coveragemapper.com at 120 feet, and you can see at this level, you are providing coverage to the entire village of Buchanan. So this is what gives me confidence to know that the site is worth moving forward and will meet your needs. Obviously, once the site is really finalized, you'll have to have your public safety consultants, review it and have run their own maps, and I'd be happy to work with them on that. But based on this preliminary analysis, and I am working with Verizon, I'm actually having a call with Verizon's RF on Friday for them to verify as well. So I'm not saying that 120 foot is the final proposed height at this time. It could go lower, maybe it can go higher. The purpose of it, if you can go back one slide, actually. I'm not sure how familiar everyone is, but if you look on the very right, you'll see a standard monopole design. Each carrier gets 10 feet on the pole, and that's needed for distances in order to ensure that there's no conflict of signals. So if each carrier has 10 feet, that means it needs to work for the bottom carrier. So you need the minimum height that it'll work for the bottom carrier plus 40 feet. And you need that bottom carrier to be above the tree line. Because believe it or not, those leaves, when they're close to the antennas, really do block the signal. Any leaf, anything blocks the signal over time, but when they're closer, it blocks it more. So you want to be over that initial set of trees there. I kind of relate it to a hose. If you had a hose and you were spraying it and you stick your finger close, you're blocking more of the signal. The same height further away, you're blocking less of the water that's coming out, less of the signal. So that's why you want to be up above the original tree height there. And in this area, you're generally talking 75 to 80 foot maximum. So if we extrapolate that out, assume 80 feet, worst case scenario, 40 feet, you get to the 120 feet. I don't think it's shown, but so you see the 4 carriers on there. Space on this tower, if we move forward, the very top would be reserved for public safety at no recurring cost, no rent. So any whip antennas you need for your police or fire departments, you'd be able to accommodate within our fenced area securely and at the very top of the tower. And like I said, I'll work with your consultants to run those signals and propagation maps to ensure it complies or meets your needs, but based on my analysis, I think it will. Any questions so far?
That's all it will be at the end, 140, 50 feet? At the end?
Well,
Proposed look like.
we're right, that was assuming a 120 foot tower. So above that, the whip antenna for public safety, they really vary. Sometimes they're just 7 feet, sometimes it's a 20-foot whip. And what I mean by whip is it's basically a thin fishing rod or like a stick that sticks up, as opposed to the types of antennas the carriers use, which are called panel antennas, which are 8 inches thick, 4, 5, 6 feet long. So the tower structure itself, 120, height above that is depending on whatever public safety needs. Yep. So right now I'm proposing 120. Once we finish all our analysis, I'll come back later and confirm a final height. But so far, I think that would be adequate. But it could go up, but so no promises yet. But we are going to try to keep it as low as possible. So really next steps is to complete the title due diligence. And what I mean by that is obviously this is currently used as a park. So we need to have our attorneys finish reviewing to see if there's any parkland alienation that may be required, which isn't insurmountable. I've done it before. I'm doing it with Putnam County right now in one of their parks as well. So we would be able to handle that and walk you through that process, which we've done before. To complete the lease negotiations, to at least get us to a point where we're in final form that makes my investors feel better as I continue to spend money on the project. And third is to conduct a balloon float. The purpose of this is to see where this tower would be visible from. And we would generally just fly a 3-foot red balloon at the height of the proposed tower. We would go around. Usually we use Saratoga Associates. I'm not sure if you're familiar with them, but they're a very well-known visual rendering firm. They're doing work in the Adirondacks right now. I'm able to fly the balloon for you at any time. We may actually want to maybe schedule that before the leaves come back on the trees too much. But really that would be the next step, where I can then have photo simulations generated from any key vantage points in the village that you like, in order to really see what this would look like before you have to make any decisions on it. And then lastly was just finish the minimum height analysis, so I can come back to the proposal as to what the tower height would be. Now, besides the obvious, safety implications and other advantages to having cellular service, the real benefit to having this in village property is control. If it's on private property, you may have heard that under the current rules that have been established by the court, if it's on private property and somebody has a permit, you'll have people say that, oh, they can just extend the tower as much as they want, usually up to 20%, without having to go back to planning board approval or anything like that. When it's on village property, you take that out of the equation. The tower itself is limited and capped by the entitlements that are in the lease. That's why getting the minimum height analysis is so important now, because once we put that in, it's locked in, and you control whether or not that ever goes up and down fully, as opposed to any kind of as of right increase. So the control is crucial. Obviously, you get the revenue from it as well. The current proposal is $2,000 base rent or 35% of gross revenue, whichever is greater. When it comes to revenue, you also need to take into account that if you did not have this facility on village property, you would then have to find some other existing structure to locate your public safety equipment on. And generally, always, you're gonna then be paying rent to somebody else. So it's not only the revenue you get in, but it's the opportunity cost of the savings that you're not gonna be then spending on rent somewhere else as well. But really, control over the aesthetics of it, what it's gonna look like, what type of stealthing, whether it's just a painted monopole or it's the faux tree, we've done both, and we leave that entirely up to you. It's very subjective. Some people like the tree, some people don't. Whenever you mention the tree, somebody brings up the tree on the hutch. I can tell you that if we did go that route, the technology is a lot better than when they built that tree on the hutch. Are any of you familiar with that one?
Oh, yeah.
I pass it every day.
Yeah. So the only thing I'll say about that one, to their credit, although I would have built it better, is that it's really not meant to make it look good from you driving in the car. It's really meant for the people that live on the side of the highway there, so that it's blended for them. And for them, they have a backdrop of other trees, so it blends in better. Yeah, it looks ridiculous in the hutch there. But when we do the visual simulations on the balloon float, we can work with you beforehand to see what you want to see. I can show you the tree, the color of the pole. Generally, we either do brown or sky blue, depending on where the biggest aesthetic views of it are. Sometimes if there's nothing behind it, it's better to do a sky blue to have it blend in. But if there is vegetation behind it, you do it brown. The one we're doing in the village of Haverstraw right now, they elect to go with a brown pole because it's right next to a mountain, so it doesn't pierce the skyline, so you're not going to see it. Here, from certain vantage points, you may pierce the skyline, so that's something we'll have to evaluate once the photo simulations are complete. Any other questions at this point?
The one on the hutch, what is the height on that?
Well, I'm not sure offhand.
Kind of, you couldn't, yeah,
I don't know.
it's curious.
Yeah.
So just so everyone knows, this is not on the baseball field.
No.
This goes behind the field. It's just off of our paper road going through the Con Edison property. So it's like kind of behind a little bit of a mound.
Yeah, based on our discussions, I put it as far back and away from the field and residents as humanly possible without encroaching into that gas line.
I think the one on the hutch appears a lot bigger because it's right there. I mean, you
Yeah.
pass it, you're literally feet away from it.
Yeah.
A situation like what we're looking at, it's gonna be in the back corner of a, parcel of property that, so I think aesthetically it won't be so overwhelming.
Plus, you already have some existing infrastructure there that are gonna be behind it as well, with the transmission lines and the
Yeah.
substation.
Exactly.
And whenever you can consolidate this necessary type of infrastructure, the better.
Yeah.
Like the one I built in the town of Newcastle in Millwood, it was a kind of a similar situation. It was off in the woods a bit, but it's right in line with transmission lines, and that really helps it blend in because it's not this new thing that people are seeing there that didn't have anything before. So that, together with the fact that there are no other village properties that are better, that are not right next to an existing residence, in my opinion, really makes this the only viable property that the village owns to do this and, meet the needs of coverage.
And so when you put these units in,
Mhm.
these stations or whatever you call them, you're gonna have to pave a road, I take it, correct? So that the maintenance vehicle can get in and out of there with access?
No, the existing paper road, actually, if you can go back, I'm sorry, if you. It's a slide, maybe slide 2.
You know where it is,
Sorry.
right, Bob? Just
Yeah.
past, well, Bob was with us that day
Yeah.
when we walked to.
So there's an existing kind of, like she's called it, a
Yeah.
paper road there now.
Right.
But long and the short is, no, we wouldn't pave it.
You wouldn't pave it?
Off of that existing road would just be a gravel road, and that's what we do
Okay.
for every single site. Generally, we don't even have to plow these things unless it's an emergency that somebody
Okay.
needs to access the site.
Here,
Yeah.
here, here we go. So
Yeah.
we'll go right around.
Yeah.
Right here.
Okay.
Yeah. So there's a little gate.
Right there.
Yeah, there's a little gate and then it turns into a bit of a dirt road.
Yep.
We may have to improve that with gravel to
Okay.
stabilize it, but that's all it would be. You know, there's benefits to that. You're minimizing the amount of additional impervious surface and things like
Mhm.
that. So just be gravel.
Okay.
Would you have to plow it in the winter to have
You
access?
just said-
Only if somebody really needs to get to the site, if there's an emergency or something.
Okay,
Generally speaking, we say in a worst case scenario, for each carrier that's on the tower, maybe one person per month would show up in a pickup truck to check things out. But really, these are all remotely monitored and alarmed, so, and they're all union, so that nobody's just showing up there, you know, so unless there's an emergency, we don't generally plow or have any issues with the road. And like I said, I've done these gravel roads on sites for over a decade and I've never had an issue
Okay.
with access. Especially on this one, this access road is gonna be like 30 feet long.
Yeah.
40 feet maybe, it's very short.
Yep.
Yeah. Yeah. So really, like I said, for next steps, what I'd like to do is, work out a date for you that you think is suitable to conduct the balloon float. I could have done this weekend, but I have a little Boy Scout camping trip. But other than this weekend, I can either do it anytime during the week or on the weekends if you prefer. Generally, we just need to have wind, at or below 5 miles an hour. We generally float it from about 8 a.m. to noon because after noon, the wind starts to pick up. And during that time, we're able to go around and take all the pictures. So we don't have to come up with this right now, but offline, I'd like to work with the mayor and staff to find a date that's suitable for everybody. And in the meantime, also work with Mrs. Porteous here to kind of work through the lease a little bit and get us a little closer to a final form.
It might be good for the whole board after work, like,
Mhm.
because I think the board wants to see
Right.
what what the height's gonna look like
You know,
from different, from stepping back, going to First Street, like just looking around at it.
instead of like after work, 'cause generally, obviously, you're dealing with sunsets and the sun being lower in the sky on that end, on the west there. Would you be open to just a Saturday morning alternately?
We'll work it out. We'll work it
Or
out.
even a Sunday, we could do, but that would be preferable because, from what my experts tell me, is generally as the earth heats up and the hot air starts going up, it increases updraft and which
Oh.
increases the wind and makes the balloon move around too much, and pop, and it's a pain. If we have to, I'll do it. It doesn't cost me much
We'll
to
get
get
back
the
to it
helium.
with some times,
Yeah.
some dates.
yeah, we
and
should
stuff,
probably do
yeah.
it sooner rather than later
Yeah.
because
Yeah.
everything's in
Yeah.
bloom, so.
Yeah.
And did you want to say anything about the cell towers that, if they transmit anything or?
Sure. All cell towers use electromagnetic fields. And if you know the electromagnetic spectrum, that includes everything from radio waves to color to light to then on the other end, the scary end is, gamma radiation and X-rays and things like that. When you look at the electromagnetic spectrum, radio waves, which is basically the type of technology that's used for cell phone antennas, is on the far left. And then about midway through, you get to the colors, red, orange, yellow, green, blue, the colors that you actually see. It's everything to the right of colors, which is considered ionizing radiation. Everything to the left is non-ionizing radiation. So I would say for anybody that's concerned about this, because they use the word radiation, and that just means something radiates from a source, but it's also a scary word because everyone thinks of, Fukushima or something. But it just means something radiates from a source. So I would encourage people to either look at the American Cancer Society website, which has a whole page dedicated to this, to look up the difference between ionizing and non-ionizing radiation. Ionizing means that the frequency is such that it's able to knock electrons off of atoms, and that's what causes cancer. This is non-ionizing radiation. The ionizing radiation is to the right after color near gamma and all that. This is not that. A lot of people, kind of conflate the two, and I think that's where a lot of the fears may be. But in general, having a baby monitor or a baby near a baby monitor is receiving more exposure than living near a cell tower. Because everything, these fluorescent lights, your refrigerator puts out more EMF than living near a cell tower. This is the same technology. It's not a new technology. It's the same technology that's been used for decades for your radio telecommunications. It's microwave telecommunications. Even 5G is still microwave, far left, non-ionizing radiation. So I would encourage people to look at those independent sources like the American Cancer Society. But as part of any application, being a telecommunications facility, I'm governed by certain federal rules that normal applications may not have to go through, including seeker and some NEPA things. But one of the requirements is also what we call an FCC compliance report. The FCC has established a certain maximum permissible exposure level, or MPE. And we are forced, or required rather, to demonstrate that any tower we construct meets those exposure limits. So if we say that the maximum permissible exposure level is 100%, as historically, I'll be able to show that fully loaded with all of the carriers, including public safety, this will come at or under about 5% of the maximum allowable exposure level. So they are safe. We're able to demonstrate that we will be well within federal guidelines, and that this is the same type of technology that is in everything we use nowadays. But again, I'm up here promoting this, so I don't want you to take my word for it. Like I said, go to the American Cancer Society, do the research on ionizing versus non-ionizing. If additional questions do come up, I'd be happy to have an RF engineer come here who can speak a little more intelligently on it. But yes, they are safe.
No, thank you for speaking to that, because
Yeah.
that's going to be a question.
Sure.
So.
Yeah.
Any questions, comments from the board on this?
Okay,
All right.
so I'll be in touch and we'll work out a balloon float as the next public step, and we'll take it from there. All right, thank you. Have a
Sounds
good night.
good.
Thank you,
for
Vincent.
coming. Okay, I already opened up both the workshop and the special meeting, so now we will continue on to the special meeting. And the first one is we are going to be submitting before June 14th. Please tell them not to do June 14th, because they say the infrastructure grants. So they always tell you with the grants, never wait till the last day, because it's just.
Oh, they're
jammed the
working on it
last
already.
day.
That's
Okay,
good.
good. Yes,
Mhm.
good. So, did you want to go over this at all,
Sure,
Marcus, with the
it was
clean
just what-
water funding? There's 2 grants that we'll be putting in.
Yeah, just for the general public's information on the board, we applied, last year for a WQIP grant. Let's go back. 2 years ago, we applied for a WQIP grant. We were awarded 1.6 million for the Stewart treatment plant. Last year, we applied for additional funding. We were denied. So we're reapplying now for a WIA grant and also a WQIP grant. A WIA grant is less of a match, up to 25%. A WQIP grant can go up to 80%. So we're trying to apply for both to try to maximize the revenue we can get from the grants. The WIA grant has already been, the funding, the grant round has already been opened. So we're applying for the WIA grant first, and the resolution is saying whatever we cannot get funding from the WIA grant, that we'll apply the WQIP grant or other funding sources where we have the energy money available. So we're gonna apply for the WIA grant, see what we get from that one, and then we're also gonna apply for WQIP grant when that gets released. Try to tie those two together, and then whatever's not made up by those 2 grants will go to the energy money. So this resolution is required for the WIA grant in order to apply for that one, and that's already been worked on. We hired a grant writer. He's working with George to get all that information together, and I think that's ready to be released probably in the next 2 or 3 weeks, and we get the WIA grant done. And then when the WQIP grant is released, we might be late June or July, then we'll apply for WQIP as well.
And
So that's
then
a little update.
we'll look at where we come in, and then we'll sit down with the state again to have a conversation about the release of the energy money also.
Correct. Mhm.
And this is for our sewer treatment plant. And then I read something, I meant to send it to you. There was some type of federal funding potentially also.
Hmm.
But I think, the
Yeah.
board will discuss it, because, we want to look at that.
That was the email that came in.
Yeah, yeah. So I don't know if that's gonna be applicable for us, but like I said, and then the town supervisor did say that we could have all of that, the energy money, so,
Correct.
but, prices are increasing, and so we're like to see this done, the sewer
Mhm.
treatment plant, the upgrade. Okay, so I'd like to make a motion authorizing the mayor to submit a New York State Water Infrastructure Improvement, the WIIA, the WIA clean water funding application on or before June 14th, 2024 to support the Buchanan wastewater system improvements and regional benefits project and pledge use of the DEC water quality improvement. That's the WQIP grant. Funding and state and local capital funding to cover the non-WIA portion of the total project's cost if the proposed WIA grants funds are awarded. So, can I have a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Okay. Let's keep our fingers crossed and see where we end up with that. Also, I'd like to make a motion authorizing the employment of seasonal help at the rate of $18 an hour. And they will be, do we have one or two people? Two
Two.
people, okay.
Right now, maybe three.
Okay, good, because we had a lot of work to do. Starting April 26, 2024. Can I have a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
And the grass is growing real fast already. Okay, I'd like to make a motion to open the public hearing for the budget. Can I have a second? All in favor?
Aye.
Okay. So we have been discussing this. We did it twice already this month. And we have to pass the budget by May 1st. So this evening, we will be passing the budget. Marcus, would you like to do a quick overview? Because I know we have gone through this, but for
Couple
people who
times.
haven't heard where the budget is coming in. and,
Sure.
what it
Sure.
looks like.
Again, the budget presentation and then the last meeting is also all on the website. So the general public is the website. The entire budget and my budget message is also on the website.
Oh.
Please take a look at that. But in summary, the proposed increase for the upcoming year is 5.34% increase, which is the average tax increase of a homeowner assessed at about $350,325. It's $146.88 or $12.24 a month. I also recommended a small change in the commercial water rates, the first tier, just a small increase in the commercial water rates to keep the commercial and the residential a little bit of a delta between the two. So those are the changes that I'm recommending at this point.
All right, do any of the board members have any comments on the budget? Okay.
Nope, I'm good.
Okay. Yeah,
Marcus,
'cause
great
we've-
job as usual.
Marcus did a great job. Yes, thank you.
Thank you.
We've
And
been through
Cindy.
this a couple times,
Cindy and Sharon.
And Sharon.
Yes.
the whole team. The only thing I would just like to throw out, if it's up to the board, if they're interested in lowering, and it would be what, by a percentage if we used some of the contingency money that's in there, or would the board like to leave it at the 5.34%?
Slippery slope.
Yeah, I guess, either way, it's good to have
I mean, I do,
more contingency, but
I do, it's a slippery, either way you look at it. I mean, I would like to drop it. And we do have the contingency money to do it. But without an agreement, the whole tech, moving forward, it's kind of tough to, we waived it last year because we didn't have that agreement and we don't have it yet. But we're working on it. So,
Yeah, that's my concern is the whole tech agreement. I
Mhm.
don't know what everybody else's thoughts are. I'm flexible, but
I'm in agreement with what Anthony said there. I think that not knowing what entity is gonna, how it's gonna pan out for us, I think it's a wise move to keep it where it's at.
just wanted to throw that out there. Yeah, so the public knows, we did have another meeting with Holtec today.
today.
To continue negotiations. We will continue negotiations and we're working on settling the pilot, so. All right. Any comments, questions from the floor on the budget? No? Oh, okay.
you're kidding.
Shocking, huh?
I know. What would it be without me, Anthony?
No, I
Right?
know, it's just
You
wonderful.
know,
I
I
look forward
tell
to
you.
these moments.
yes, I'm sure you do.
I
Okay, this is for Marcus.
Yes.
Okay, so we're in uncertain times financially. And as as a taxpayer, I would like you to just explain very simply, if inflation goes up and we're working with this budget, where does extra money come from? Like we have to pull it from a savings or reserve someplace along the way. How does the village do that?
So.
That's my only question.
So my concerns are, as the board said, the agreement we have with Holtec. Next year, there's a substantial decrease in the pilot payment, and there's also a decrease in the cessation fund. Next year is a pretty bad hit, but the year after that is a $1.3 million decrease between the two. So I'm concerned 2 years from now. So I like to think a couple of years in the future to see what's going to happen. So if you build, as we discussed, keeping continued the way it is, it keeps a good base tax rate increases to help offset those increases in the future. So the biggest issue we have is if we have uncontrollable expenses, either snow removal, or emergency water lines or sewer lines, that's what contingency is for. I'm comfortable with the budget the way it is this year. We're looking at a vacuum right now. So we're good this year. My concern in the next 2 years, what's gonna happen? And as they described, we have fund balance. But again, the fund balance, as we discussed, is we want to use for capital projects. So in case we have to do a water line or a sewer line or a major improvement they have to do or we have an issue, we have fund balance set aside to pay for those one-time expenses. So I'm trying to put the village in the position where it can take care of emergencies, have money set aside for that, and then also plan for the next 2 or 3 years. So right now, the way the budget is right now, I'm very comfortable in the village in a very good financial position as it is, but unforeseeable is 2 years from now. That's what the concern is.
Marcus, when you say the 1.3 million, you're assuming that there's no agreement with Holtec?
That's correct. But the
Okay.
pilot expires. That's
Right.
correct.
He's going worst case scenario.
Worst case
Absolute
scenario,
worst
yeah.
case scenario. Okay,
Yeah, exactly.
okay, that's fine.
Mark, just a quick question. I know I mentioned it last meeting, but was the sale of the Blakely Avenue project, was that included in this year's budget?
No, because the way that works on, at least on our accounting purposes, that's more of a cash basis. So we have to wait to receive the money in order to actually book it in our books. So I can't accrue the money because we haven't received the money yet. So the day it's received, then of course, then the money will be recorded. If the board agrees to the presentation and we actually close on property, then it'll be recorded the day that it's received.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
And then the board could also use that, put that aside for.
Yep, you can put in
contingency
capital
Or whatever the
projects.
board
Yep,
decides to.
for a certain
do with that.
project, whatever you want to do.
Pay off bonding, whatever.
Correct.
Hello, hi, Lisa.
Lisa Wenz, 206 Tate Avenue. I was wondering if there was anything in the future for another police officer. I know Chief Shane was here at one point and mentioned he was really in need of another police officer. And with all this building happening in our community and looks like about 18% increased in population, is that something you're looking at down the road?
That's really a board decision, it's a personal matter. I don't hire
Okay.
and fire, the board does. And it comes down to what the board wants to do in the future. I gave them what the numbers would be and what it'll double the tax rate increase right now if we hire one police officer. So that's really a discussion between the board and the public, and is it worthwhile the tax rate increase about 6%?
So we have an executive session this evening to discuss personnel and negotiations also. There's 2 things we're going to be discussing.
Okay.
Okay, thank you, Lisa. Oh, Shane, yes.
I just wanted to add to that, just so you guys know, the public knows, we've had communications. We're discussing it. I know I've been working with Steve and the rest of the board for over a year. There's a lot of moving parts. I was hoping some of the dominoes fell in the right spots. So we're still working through it. So, you know, we're trying to figure it out and try to figure out what's best for the village and what we can do. So, it's just, there's a lot of moving parts as they express that the whole tech thing hasn't fallen through and, you know, so at this moment, we got to move forward with the budget, but we're still working at it. So just so you know that it's open communications. Okay?
All
Thank
right.
you.
As far
Thanks.
as Marcus, we have in the budget, do we not? Or we don't? We took it out, didn't we?
Yes.
We took it out?
The police officer?
Yeah.
Yeah, I never put the extra police.
No, we had it last year, didn't we?
No, last year, yeah,
Well, no, we.
the year
we
before
lost-
that, we
yes,
had.
right,
we
right.
had-
2 years ago.
Philip,
Forget
we
what
had the
I-
workers' comp issue.
That's
That's the
right.
reason why.
Correct.
2 years
Yeah.
ago.
Okay, don't forget it.
All right, if no one has any other comments, I would like to make a motion to close the public hearing, the public hearing. Can I have a second, please?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Okay. And I would like to make a motion to adopt the 2024-2025 budget and water rates. And once again, the budget increase will be 5.34%. Can I have a second, please? All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you. Okay, comments from the floor? No? Okay. Okay.
So wait,
We're
the
gonna
water
also-
rates are inclusive in the
One of those-
resolution of the budget?
I think everybody saw in Somers, they were an application for the battery operated, battery storage was only held for Somers residents. They are not letting anybody else, any outsiders in.
No, that was, they
Oh,
only
was that-
allowed Carmel residents and turned Somers away. Did you watch that?
No, I was going
Watch
to.
that, that's hairy.
Yeah.
Wow.
It's in Carmel, but it's right over the border.
Oh,
So a lot of the Somers residents were trying to be heard and they told them, sit down, period. It wasn't pleasant.
no, I'm sure it wasn't pleasant.
But
The
everything's on.
decommissioning is Thursday.
Thursday,
We
at
have a
6
planning
o'clock for
board
the
meeting.
town.
And
Oh.
they have a protest display at 5 o'clock. I confirmed that with Lisa,
Yes.
saw that on there. And I also would like to address the rash of burglaries that have happened in Buchanan, in Montrose, into Croton, and all the rest of it. And I guess my question is to our chief. Is there anything that has been determined who is doing this? Since there's so many of these going on, and also if the chief has any suggestions for homeowners, if there's been any rash of home burglaries, or anybody that's complained about seeing people, driving or walking or whatever, in regards to like putting ring in, making sure your windows on the main floor are not open now that the weather is breaking and it's been, it's gonna get nice out while you're not home. Little tidbits that might be able to be put into our newsletter. Just as something, I'm sorry, Sharon.
It is, I saw a
Take
copy of
notes.
the newsletter. It's pretty
I-
full.
Okay, but I mean, I'm just saying that, if there's something on Facebook or the website, anything that could, help out the residents in regards to just being more cognizant of what burglars might look for. That's all.
All right,
That's a good suggestion.
Okay.
And if anybody sees anything strange, to report it.
See something, say something. Yes.
See something, say something.
There you
That's
go.
right, Eileen.
I've heard that before, right? Somewhere.
Yeah, I mean.
And then some
Subway.
people were talking about neighborhood watches, that they were talking about doing that. I don't know. I'm just saying what I heard.
Yeah, so to answer some questions, it's an ongoing investigation. There's multiple agencies dealing with it. Yes, Buchanan had two, total of 3, but 2 are related, that we believe, and, we're working with other departments on all of those, because they're all, subjected to the same thing, and we kind of think they're gonna be connected in some way, at least some of them. So that's where we're really at, is there's a lot of just time consuming things that we're waiting on, following up on some leads and things like that. It's all been commercial, has not been residential. But you always should be practicing, this day and age, you should be practicing, locking all your doors, windows, not leaving things in your cars, locking your cars. The car one is really a crime of opportunity. If you leave your purse in there, your computer in there, that's where they're going, if it's unlocked. So really, it's just your basic safety stuff, and you should always be locked up. you know, other than that, I mean, like I said, it's spread out wide and, we're working with multiple agencies. Okay. And that's really where we're at right now.
Thank you.
All right, thank you, Chief. Chris?
Marcus, the grant writer, I understand he was hired for the WIA grant, but is he gonna be ongoing to solicit other grants that are, you know, throughout the year?
Yes, yes, the board authorized, in fact, the mayor said, asked them to reach out for any other potential other grants that might be available for Lynch Cove Park, for example, so he's looking at that as
So
well.
is that like a monthly, is he, you know,
He-
on
whenever-
retainer or?
No, whenever he finds something, he
Mhm.
gets paid an hourly rate, and when he does serve, the research doesn't cost us anything. Well, if he finds something, you want to go ahead to do it, then he'll charge us an hourly rate.
But is he engaged with the village?
Yes,
What-
yeah. He's engaged in a way that is on as needed basis. Whenever a grant comes down, if he said, there's a grant available, I can report to the board. Are you interested to apply for it? And then we'll pay him for hourly rate.
Why would he report, you know, why would he give that information to you and not the village of Croton, town of Cortland, somewhere else? Is he engaged with the village of Buchanan?
He's engaged with a number of municipalities. So
Okay.
he actually
So,
worked.
but with the village of Buchanan, he's engaged to provide that information.
That's correct. That's
Okay.
correct.
Okay. And regarding the cell phone tower, is there a public hearing that's gonna be?
That would be,
involved with
that would be,
correct?
that would
Right,
be
where the-
required.
Okay. And
Absolutely.
regarding the balloon test, and as Dan mentioned, now would be the time to do it. And it's for the benefit of the residents. That way they can see what it's gonna look like, because pretty soon all the leaves are
Yep.
gonna be covered. And,
Then you
know,
can't
so-
see anything.
Yeah, exactly.
Mhm.
Okay, thank you.
And I think we need to notify the neighbors in the area with the balloon test so they have a better picture of it. So we'll talk about, you know, we'll get together and figure out when's a good time to meet. Thank you.
Chris?
My name is Chris Mason. I'm a village resident. I've been here a few years. Basically my whole life. So I'd made a couple of proposals to the mayor recently about, some public safety issues seen around the village. One of those being that the crosswalk at Fourth Street, I grew up in the village and we used to walk to school and that crosswalk was important. However, there was a traffic light there. There used to be a traffic light at the, elementary school as well. And where the crosswalk is now is relatively unsafe. I know, you walk the dog too there. People come around that curve can't see you. So I had wrote a message to her about maybe trying to put a sidewalk on I guess it'd be the northbound side of the street, about halfway up to the pool parking lot and moving the crosswalk there so that people who are crossing the street have a safer perspective, as well as the drivers coming around the corner on Westchester Avenue. Another thing where the mayor lives, I live on Third Street at the top of the street. We have the group home there. And there's been a significant increase of personnel working in and out of there. And they park on both sides of the street, which limits the visibility in both directions at the top of Second and top of Third Street, as well as limits the width of the roadway. And there's a lot of, it's not accident prone or anything like that, obviously, but coming out of Third Street to make a left or coming out of Second Street to make a right, it's very hard to see having parking on both sides of the street. So I was wondering if the village would look into maybe limiting parking on to one side of the street in that area, just to make it safer for village residents, walkers, drivers, everything like that, and reduce shenanigans, I guess is the best way to put it, because sometimes people get in the middle and then neither end, we've all been there, neither end want to move and, oh, I was coming first or you were coming first. It'll just reduce potential issues with residents. And I think the last thing was, I just wanted to say, my son doesn't play baseball anymore, but I've been noticing the upkeep of the baseball field. I think looking into a way to maybe renovate the baseball field because it is used by the high school and a number of little leagues, but it's in utter disrepair. The years that I was a coach, we would be there on the weekends to try and get water off the field. There's just no drainage there. I don't know what can be done, obviously, but it would be something nice. We redid the pavilion. I know they redid part of the pool, but the baseball field probably gets the most use throughout the year, whether it be for the camp or for the baseball field leagues. And I would like to see that renovated in some way, maybe made safer or more playable than it is now. So those are some of the projects I thought the village might be interested.
Thank you.
Thank Thanks, Chris.
Chris.
Chris had emailed me and I'd asked him to come in, to speak to the board. And thank you for coming in, Chris. But you're right. I know you usually come up the top of Third Street and there's certain times of the day
It's bad.
you can't see. Yeah,
I
it's.
agree.
And then it's also dangerous. I know, because I try to get through that road too. You're walking the dog, but it's almost like from Second Street down. It's
It's bad.
really dangerous. We're gonna have to take a look at that, but thank you. Chief?
Mayor, Village Board, thank you. Once again, thank you for passing the budget, which includes the fire department budget. It costs money to run the fire department. I think we do a great job compared to other municipalities, so we're very proud and thank you for that. A few things, and I just want to touch off what Chris said. Riding through the village, especially on weekdays in the evening hours, the streets I've seen, First Street, when there's parking on both sides, fire apparatus is going to have a very difficult time coming in from Tate Avenue. Depending on where the call is and tactics that are involved, it may include coming different ways with different trucks at times. I'd like you to look at the possibility of coming back 15 feet from every street curb. So the intersections of Tate, 15 feet back. That'll allow the fire trucks to safely make the swing to come in. That's just not for our fire trucks, it's for the mutual aid fire trucks too. That might be a little bit bigger. So I'd like you to look at that. Also, in the budget I know there was some mention about possibly a part-time code enforcement. Was that still in play or no?
If there's the issue with code enforcement, we got one and a half part-timers. So if there's the issue with code enforcement, definitely Peter and Brian will get on top of it.
Okay, I know that, I've talked to Peter several times and, he's working a lot. And regarding the structural fire that occurred on March 21st on Lindsay Avenue, there were a lot of issues there, and there's probably issues throughout the village that we need to really look at. And it's not only for the residents that live there, but it's for the safety of the firefighters. So I'd like you to take a look at that as well.
The most important thing, like I got a call today from a resident. You're not snitching. You're not a bad neighbor. If you see something that you think is improperly legally, give us a call. At the end of the day, we can't force our way into the house, but at least it'll be on the radar and they can politely ask, we have a complaint, it could be anonymous. We can ask, can we come in? There's complaints and we can try to get in there. I've dealt with this in Peekskill, Ossining, Portchester. And we're trying to stay on top of that as well, but we need to get the information. There's no way we could be everywhere in the village. That's why we need people in the village to let us know where the thing's a problem and we can try to address them.
Okay, thank you. And finally, I did deliver a letter to the mayor today regarding the Memorial Day Parade. This year is the responsibility of the Buchanan Engine Company, along with the Montrose and Verplank Fire Departments, to run the annual Memorial Day Parade. I submitted a permit to start the parade this year at the corner of Henry Street and Tate Avenue to allow the fire trucks to come in one way from Kings Ferry Road, line up on, I guess it would be the south side of Tate Avenue, and congregate right at Henry Street, go down through the circle to the pavilion. There will be, as always, a short ceremony, and the fire departments will provide refreshments in the pavilion. If there's any fee that's requested of that, I'd ask the village board to please waive that as they have done in the past.
Do you want to put that on the agenda for the Monday, our May meeting, that we can waive the fee? Okay, good. Thank you, Cindy. Thanks.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thanks, Bob.
And the invitations for the parade are in the board's mailbox. Thank you. I just have a few things. Earth Day. I forgot. Somebody was coming up. Yes, Eileen.
No, I
Go
want to
ahead.
say something about the cell tower.
Oh, sure.
It's really important to stress the fire department and police department, anybody that's having emergency services, anybody that's having a problem with that, Croton did not want a cell tower up by the Danish Home, which was up by the Croton Dam. But yet none of the people could get cell service if they had a fire, if they needed an ambulance, nothing. So the mayor at that time said to me, they're fighting this and really they have no recourse of, of getting services because they have no service. So it's important or imperative that if this is necessary, even if it's a little unsightly, and people will complain, it might not be too bad, but it's really a safety issue rather than anything else. And with all the people that have gotten rid of landlines or computer lines and are just using their cell phones, that's another issue too. So, it's really important because I remember what they did. They held up that cell tower for a year or two up at the Danish Home until they finally, the FCC just says it's not because you don't like it that you can't have it. It, went through anyway. So there are, stipulations that the government has that will not stop the feeling of not wanting it versus the necessity or anything else. So I just wanted to re-emphasize that.
Thank you, Eileen. Yeah, we're gonna have, we have to have public hearings. But why this came about is the fire chief, Bob Outhouse, and our police chief, Shane, also, approached us and told us that there was a major issue with our communication. So we can't have that. It's a dangerous situation. So that's why the board is moving forward with the cell tower. And I forget how, I forgot to ask him how long it takes to build that, but it's probably looking at least a year. I don't remember what you said, Marcus, to you.
Oh, just to let you know, there'll be an application to the planning board. It's in our code already.
Oh, okay. All right, so
Go to the planning board
the
for.
planning board, public hearing, et cetera, et cetera. So it's still a process, but it's an important for us to have that.
Construction of it, Teresa, is very quick.
Yeah, it's got to
The
happen.
the construction of it is.
Yeah,
is rapid.
Oh, is it really?
They go pretty quick.
Oh, okay.
It'll be up in 2 months.
Months, it's not.
Okay. So it's just, I guess, going through the process is
Yeah,
the,
it's just a concrete pad.
put the
so-
tower up and boom, you're
And
done.
I think the suppliers have to come in and it
Crunch it
takes
all
them a
out.
little time to put it in.
All right, good. All right, good.
But it's definitely a need.
Oh, yeah. So first of all, Earth Day, we did not do that this year, but I'm hoping that we can work on something in the fall. Maybe we can plant bulbs or, we can get the community together to do a cleanup or plant bulbs. So we'll work on that. I want to give you an update on the poles on Albany Post Road. You have 2 poles, you see a half a pole, you see some of the wires transferred over. And fortunately, one of our residents has really been on top of this and just keeping us moving forward with that. So you'll see the shorter pole, when they cut the pole down, that means all the high wires are up, the electric wires are up, but the lower wires are all communication wires.
Verizon cable.
Yeah, and Best Web, they said it was one of them, which was taken over by another company. So, fortunately, we've been trying everything. Marcus has called Con Ed. Con Ed said that, we're done. We've got our wires transferred, so it's the communication. So we're like, so what do we do? So fortunately, I had a contact with the Public Service Commission, and fortunately for us, the guy actually lives in Peekskill. So he came down, saw what we were talking about. So that's moving forward. We will have those poles, the wires transferred onto the poles and the poles down, pretty quickly. So I'm saying pretty quickly, but this has been going on for years. So, but at least we found the right contact people to go to.
Good.
Yeah, so that's, Con Edison. I spoke to Con Edison, and going forward, the board, I'd like them involved with this. I had mentioned once before that they had overtaken our paper road on First Street. And in the LWRP, there was mention of possibly making that a walkthrough to go out to Broadway, just like a nice walking area. But going back probably about 5 years ago, Con Edison enlarged their whole, what do they call that over there? I call them transmission lines, but
Substation.
so they kind of came into our road And, you know, I had a conversation with Con Edison and Marcus is involved also. So hopefully we can get that resolved. And also there is a pole across from Wick that is all peeling and chipped and everything. And when I spoke to Con Edison, I mentioned that to them also to take care of that, either paint it or replace it. I don't know if anybody on the board has any contacts with the railroad, but the bridge coming, the train tracks coming into the village, the bridge itself. Years ago, gosh, it's gotta be almost 10 years ago, Mike Cherico worked for the railroad and he had contacts. I'm not sure, you know. Okay, yeah, because, you know, I think, you know, since we put the new sign up, you know, maybe it'd be nice if they would paint that part. They did it in a beautiful blue last time, but anything to spiff that up a little bit would be great. Thursday is a decommissioning oversight board meeting at the town of Cortland at 6 p.m. They have someone coming in to discuss storing the water inside, I believe it's the turbine buildings. So instead of storing it outside in containers, they're talking about now what they would like to see is stored. The game plan for them is to store it on the property. So they're looking at the turbine building. So that will be the discussion. They will not be discussing for sure the lawsuit that Holtec has filed. And I think it would be appropriate to put on our Facebook page, the Huffington Post article about the lawsuit Holtec has against the state for the legislation. So people are aware of that. Also on June 13th here at Village Hall, we are going to have the next DOB meeting to get the Decommissioning Oversight Board meeting. So just want to give everybody a heads up. We'll have it here. The other thing is a resident had spoken to us and the board will discuss this. There was a long-term resident here who lived on Bannon Avenue, who lived to be over 100. I think she passed at 102 years old. Her name was Josie Vavrick. And there was a mention of possibly putting some type of a sign or a road sign, Josie Vavrick Way. So I don't think we're ready to discuss that yet, but we can have conversations about that. It just, I don't know. You know, I mean, Josie was a great village resident here, interesting life, the whole bit. But I know we've had other residents ask us to put up family signs and different things. So I think, you know, unless the board wants to comment on that now, you know, I don't know where we want to go with that, but, you know, we can discuss it tonight or we can discuss it further.
I'd like that resident to come in and give an history and an explanation of why. A
Okay.
little history of the woman and, you know, what she brought to the village and why, you know, what's deserving of this. You know, not to say that she didn't deserve it, just give a little history on it.
All right, yeah, because you're right. Not everybody knew Josie.
I never knew her. I never knew her, and I'd like to learn about her,
Yeah.
so.
Got a lot of old timers here. They have Mr. Stein, Mr. Robert Stein. He just celebrated, what was it, his 96th or 97th birthday, and he was born here in the Village of Buchanan. So got a lot of history here.
Him I do know.
Yeah, you do, Bobby. Yeah, he's a character. And the only other thing I'd like to say, thank you, Sharon and Cindy. Look inside our newsletter. It has our calendar for May, June, July, and August, and it'll be coming to your home shortly. So
Thank you.
thank you. Anthony, what do you have for us? We'll start down this side today.
All right. I don't really have much. I mean, we went over the budget. I'm glad that the budget was approved. I'm not too happy about the increase with the taxes, but you know, in light of what's happening with Holtec, we don't have much of a choice. Hopefully we'll get this resolved sooner or later. We did have a very productive meeting today with Holtec, which I was pleased with. You know, I think we're going in a positive direction. And it will stabilize our budget for a long time if we get what we want. And, you know, Marcus, great job on the budget and your helpers over there. You know, I know it's a tough job and you do take it very seriously and it does come out good every year, you know? And it's amazing how, you know, over the years, the fund balance and the general fund has really increased, you know, and it stays and it's stabilized. So good job as well. And, that's really it. I just, wanted to bring up that meeting. I was happy with, not happy, but I know we're gonna get there. I have a feeling we're gonna get there.
It was productive. Well done. What's the
I
answer?
agree. Oh, the mic, I keep forgetting. I agree, the meeting to, oh my goodness, wait.
Yeah.
Can you hear me now?
Up there, yep.
There you go.
All right.
Yay, good.
For a little person, I thought I had a loud voice. I guess not. But I agree. The meeting today was good. I like the idea that you had a backup plan to support some of the misconceptions that I heard. The mayor, as well as the other board members, asked great questions, and that shows them that we are paying attention. We're here for our residents, and we're going to fight to get the best deal possible. So I was very impressed with that. As far as what I've heard here tonight, as a new board member, I am learning a lot of the issues and the dreams and hopes that are on the table. And my goal is to work with the board and support in making these things happen. And if they can't happen, how we can have alternatives.
Oh, good. Thank you. Thank you. Bob, what do you have for us this evening?
I don't really have too much. I'd just like to thank Marcus for his hard work on the budget. I also like to thank Chris for showing up today. You know, give us a little insight what he's looking to do in the corner of Blakely and Albany Post Road. There's some exciting times here, I think, going on in the village with the opportunity to help out our taxpayers a little bit. The other thing I have to say is I did meet with the beautification committee about the village circle with the tree situation. They're trying to come up with some ideas. Becky and Cheryl have a little bit of a disagreement on how they want to go about doing things, but they're going to come up with some kind of a plan and let us know what we're going to do with the trees.
Okay.
And coming just to talk about what Teresa wrote about those poles. Those poles been a long time that way. I think the three that are the worst are coming out of Catherine Street. I
Yes.
think Steve knows what I'm talking about. You really can't see too well there. It's really a dangerous situation right there. So that's all I have right now.
We just had to find the right people to make it happen. Dan, what do you have?
No, I just want to commend Marcus and Cindy and Sharon and everybody that worked on the budget for, you know, putting it together and doing a great job. Just to hit on what Chris said, I totally understand what he's saying about 4th Street. I've walked there. A lot of people walk there. It's a very dangerous curve.
So we gotta pay attention.
It really is, no matter which side you're walking on. And I don't know, maybe we can put our heads together and come up with some kind of solution there. I'm glad we're moving forward with the cell tower. I think it's been needed for a long time. You know, we're in the beginning stages, but let's see what we come up with. And I'm glad we're getting the telephone poles, you know, taken care of. It's what, 2 years since they put new poles in, and it's been like that. And, you know, it's an eyesore, but it's also a hazard. So, you know, little things, but progress, which is good.
And also we did the tour of Certainty.
The tour of Certainty,
Yep.
yes.
Yep,
And we
that
thank
was interesting.
Certainty for that. Yes. Was it?
Oh, Marcus, I did have a question for you. Did we have another pole hit by a car?
Yes.
Oh.
Do we know who did it?
No. Chief, do you know who hit the pole? Yeah.
Okay, we're coming after them to pay for it, right?
Yes.
Well,
Well, that's, sometimes they jump out. And I just want to thank the residents that come here for their input. It's important that you come to tell us what's on your mind, what you're thinking, because we don't know unless you tell us. So I'd like to see a lot more public input. So please come to the meetings or email us or call us and let us know what your thoughts are.
Thank you. Yeah.
And I'd like to make a motion to go into executive session to discuss negotiations and personnel. Can I have a second, please?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Good evening.